Thursday night, Phil Bayley. He has had a seat at the kitchen table with history. He has written a book about his insider's role in politics in New York State, a former New York State Democratic Party chairman, John Sullivan. He has written a book called Peanut Your Pants. We will make him explain the title. John, thanks very much for joining us.
Delighted to be here.
The title, maybe it's just me, the title sounds like a play on John Kennedy's Ask Not What Your Country Can Do For You.
Yeah, maybe. You know, when you're writing a book, you try to think we went through several iterations of title. And basically, a memoir is a journey. It's a journey through your life. You look back and say, how did it all begin? You know, why am I who I am? How did it come to pass? What's it all about, Alfie? So for me, it was tuning back into 1952, St. Mary's School, Oswego, New York, kindergarten class, Sister Stanislaus. And, you know, we didn't have individual desks. We sat at tables. There was the red table, the blue table, the green table, and the orange table. Now, we established our own pecking order. So if you sat at the red table, you're the bee's knees. If you sat at the orange table, not so much. So for whatever reason, I strove to sit all the time at the red table. And if you're the first seat at the red table, you're the king of the prom, across from the queen of the hop. So things went along well until one day I peed my pants. And Sister Stanislaus made me stand behind the piano, and then she sat me at the orange table. Whoa, mortified. I'm like, me at the orange table, sister? Well, thank you, I think, Sister Santa Claus, for teaching me one of life's very valuable lessons.
That was her nickname, right?
Yeah,
Sister Santa Claus.
Yeah, and I haven't peed my pants in 65 years since, yet. but pee not.
Who knows? Maybe the next 15 minutes.
Pee not your pants, because it's dry pants people who rule the world. So when we came up with that title, I wove that theme throughout the book. And essentially, if you can hold it together when everyone else is falling apart around you, ultimately you'll succeed. So it's a lighthearted, anecdotal approach to telling my life story, and I think it's a good summer read, particularly if you're a baby boomer.
It's a fun read. I enjoyed it, and I want to talk about some of the rulers of the world that you brushed shoulders with. Okay, first of all, you came within inches of shaking John F. Kennedy's hand, right?
I did, yes. That was a memorable experience. 1963, high school senior, I'm at the Catholic Students CYO convention in New York. And the president, we read that he was stopping for stoplights, and he was at the AFL-CIO convention at the Sheraton. We were at the Hilton just a couple blocks away. So we got there around noontime, and everybody's going in the ballroom, and it was a surprise visit, and you know, what's going on? The president's here. Oh my God. I can remember him standing in the balcony and looking at all of us elbow to elbow and saying, my fellow CYOers, pandemonium, you know. So we quickly made our way down the escalator out to the street to catch a glimpse of this motorcade. Well, sure enough, I'm standing there, probably from me to the camera away. It was a black car. It's a beautiful sunny day, November 15th, 1963, and there is John F. Kennedy. And he and we made eye contact. It's like a freeze frame picture in my mind. I went over toward him to shake hands, and just as I did, the light changed and the car pulled away. So I never did get to shake hands, and it was a week later.
And November 15th, right. 1963, notable.
Yeah, but those are the kinds of things.
A week away from his assassination.
Those are the kinds of things that are indelibly stamped in your mind.
You were a player in New York politics all your adult life, right? I mean, in fact,
much,
a mayor.
Yeah, I've been a mayor, I've been a county legislator, I've been a party leader, I've been an attorney general, assistant attorney general, and then I retired recently.
Live in Saratoga County now?
I do, yeah.
So, all right, now you were an intern in Robert Kennedy's office, right?
I was, yes.
All right.
One of my earliest experiences, I actually worked for Mary Jo Kopechne.
I'm going to ask you about that, too. Let's talk about Robert Kennedy first, because that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So tell what, he was a senator from New York.
Yes.
And what do you remember about him?
Well, at the time, they would take students from various colleges and give you a 2-week internship experience, and I got to be the one from Oswego State who went. So, you know, there I am, 20 years old, and I just remember the senator coming back from the Mississippi Delta. And that afternoon, there was an impromptu cocktail party. Of course, it was an 18-year-old drinking age back then. So everybody went into the senator's office, and there's Robert Kennedy sitting at his desk, kind of sweaty armpits and bloodshot eyes and tired from coming back. And he had a glass of Old Fitzgerald bourbon in his hand, and I'm sitting on the floor drinking a beer. And he's talking about the Mississippi Delta, and he said, I guess I was on Walter Cronkite. Did anyone see it? Senator, I did. So I explained to him what I had seen, and then it was like a pinch me moment. Here I am telling Senator Kennedy what I saw. Well, the irony of that is that years later, I got to meet Carrie Kennedy Cuomo and related that story to her.
His daughter, RFK's daughter. Right. And she was married to Andrew Cuomo for about a dozen years.
Yeah, and she came to Oswego to speak, and we had a nice chat. When she was interviewed for the 30th assassination special on her father's assassination, she mentioned that incident, and I thought to myself, I was with your old man just before he got home to Hickory Hill that day. So it's like kind of like a Forrest Gump moment, if you will. But she said that was one of the most poignant remembrances of her dad, was when he came home from the Mississippi Delta. So those are the kinds of stories that I weave throughout the book.
All right, so one of your supervisors in RFK's office was Mary Jo Kopechne,
yes,
who, if people would say, gosh, that name's familiar, she was the young woman who died in a car driven by Ted Kennedy on Chappaquiddick.
She was a delightful, a very charming person, very gentle. And what we did is we would write letters in response to letters that were more than just form. If a letter was so special that it required a little more attention, it would go to the correspondence unit, and that's what she supervised. So I had a very great experience. Very sad, unfortunately, what happened.
Yeah. And this Forrest Gump role you have had in politics is sort of coming to the surface. You can see a trend. You campaigned for and were a delegate for George McGovern in the 1972 Democratic Convention.
Yeah.
He lost to a president who was, not too much later, forced to resign in disgrace.
Yes. I tell a story in the book about Jimmy Breslin and going out bar hopping at 3 in the morning in Miami. That's quite a story. Yeah, the 1972 Democratic Convention was a very, very formative and interesting experience for me. And I met George McGovern several years later and had a chance to really sit down with him and talk with him. He's absolutely one of my all-time favorite politicians.
Did you sort of realize a dream when you became mayor of your hometown, Oswego?
Yeah, I always wanted to be the mayor for some reason. I'm still running for mayor, Phil. For some reason, I don't know. It's an innate thing. You meet people, you try to find some type of common ground with them, and that's what mayors do. So, yeah, I'm still a mayor.
Much later, you quizzed Hillary Clinton, the candidate for the U.S. Senate, about Oswego and New York communities of similar names. How'd that go?
Well, she asked me what I thought about her running, and I said, to be quite honest, Mrs. Clinton, not a lot, not much, because what do you know about upstate New York? And I said, let me put it to you this way. When you can tell me the difference between Oswego, Owego, Otsego, and Otsego, then run. 6 months later, I'm in Watertown. I see her at a campaign event. She'd been all around the state. She's, John, come here. She said, Oswego's in Oswego County, Owego's in Tioga County, Otsego's in Otsego County, and Otsego is in Otsego County. You go, Mrs. Clinton, and as they say, the rest is history.
And that was, sort of an odd thing for journalists, for those of us who were covering her. But her campaign for Senate did begin with a listening tour, didn't
Absolutely,
it? Because she acknowledged she didn't know a lot about New York, and she wanted to represent them in the Senate.
Yeah, one wonders if the same approach had been adopted by her during the presidential campaign, if there would have been a different result.
Interesting. You later say Rudy Giuliani made a similar mistake?
Yeah, not only Rudy Giuliani, but also Rick Lazio. And I wrote a letter to the editor and quoted that Oswego, Owego. But Giuliani made the mistake of calling Rochester. He said Rochester, he referred to something about the mountains of Monroe. Well, there's the town of Monroe, I think in Sullivan County, if I'm not mistaken. Rochester's flat as a pancake. So if you don't know the difference between the town of Monroe and the county of Monroe, what are you running for? And shortly after that, he dropped out because he failed to come to Rochester to a Republican dinner because he went to the Yankees opening game. And I said, that's an indication your heart really isn't in this. He dropped out.
Sometimes they seem to forget, even when they're in a community, that their whole world is watching. You go back to Ed Koch's statement about upstate New York wearing gingham.
Right.
And that was,
well, when I was chosen to be the co-chair, initially it was to be chair, and then I said I had no fundraising experience. So Sheldon Silver at the time reached out to Judith Hope from Long Island, who was a very good fundraiser, and matched the two of us up. Well, it's tough to have two captains of a ship. So after some wrangling, Judith and I finally defined our roles, and I worked on mostly upstate issues, and we developed something, we put together something called the Democratic Rural Conference, the smallest 4 counties in the state, 40 counties in the state, and try to give voice to them. That's still going on. I'm proud of that.
You and Judith Hope became co-chairs of the Democratic Party at a very interesting time because it was in the shambles of Mario Cuomo's defeat for governor.
Mario Cuomo got 17% of the vote in Oswego County. Now, Mickey Mouse would get 33. All right. So they recognized, whoa, there's a problem here. So they did a kind of a focus group, I think, and came up with, well, maybe we should get an Irish former mayor with a good-looking wife and 4 nice daughters who can give a speech and put them in, reach out to the Reagan Democrats that way. So, bing, my name
was there a vacuum left in Cuomo's wake? Because he was such a powerful figure. And when he was gone...
Phil, we had 3 broken down computers. They hadn't paid the rent in some time in our office in Albany. We were broke. It was really the low point. And I must say, Judith Hope did a great job of building financially and otherwise. And I assisted her, and we brought the party back to the point where Chuck Schumer got elected. And, Chuck Schumer goes to every county in the state every year. You know why that is? Because he wasn't treated very well at the first Democratic Rural Conference, and he never forgot it. And he pledged then that he would always campaign upstate. He has. Hillary's campaign, again, was successful in part because of the attention she paid to the DRC.
And you sort of bridged both sides of the river in that you were also involved with who turned out to be the Democratic heirs. You worked for Elliot Spitzer and Andrew Cuomo in the Attorney General's office,
yes,
right?
Yes, I did.
You liked Elliot Spitzer.
I still do. We all have feet of clay. Perhaps he has more clay in his feet than others. But he was always very kind to me. He was very attentive to the staff. And he was a crusader. Andrew Cuomo was a different type of attorney general, and he didn't give us as much latitude in the regional offices as Elliot did. So I've always appreciated Elliot's support, and there are several Elliot stories in the book.
Yeah, you were an assistant U.S. attorney up there in Watertown?
State attorney
State
general.
attorney, I should say. Yeah, thank you for correcting me.
Sure.
You also knew Joe Prococo, who
I sure did.
Right now is involved in the scandal that involves Sudi Polly and Elaine Collier.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I know him.
That's going on. Where can viewers find your book, Peanut Your Pants?
There are signed copies at the Northshire Bookstore in Saratoga. Excuse me. Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble. There is a Kindle version available on iTunes or on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. And I think the Kindle is $7.99 and the book's $19.95. But it's a good summer read. And you'll chuckle, you'll smile, you may get a tear in your eye. I tell the story of my wife and her struggle with cancer, and I expanded that chapter. It's called Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes.
Yeah.
So
it's heartbreaking.
It's a comprehensive look at my life that I think I have a lot of stories, so I might as well share them.
Yep, we got to go. But it is a fun read for all those political junkies in the Capital Region, and we know there are a lot of you out there. It's called Peanut Your Pants by John Sullivan. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you for joining us on Forum 13. I'm Phil Bayley. We'll see you next week.